People who have broken up with someone because right person, wrong time. Did you regret it? Not necessarily. It was long distance and had to be done at the time. I think she's doing much better now anyway, but it's still a shame. Often I think of how wonderful she was still is and hope all the best for her. A girl I was seeing asked me to marry her. I told her I needed to think about it and eventually told her no. I thought I would had held her back. My store was closing down at the time and 2 months before that happened, I turned down a transfer offer to stay. So, I knew I was gonna be without work for some time. She didn't take it well and we mutually decided to part and didn't speak for 3 years. At the time, I did regret it. Thought about her every day. Didn't date or see anyone, just wasn't interested. Eventually though our paths crossed again due to crazy circumstances. We both missed each other tons and sorta just picked back up where we were before we split. Though neither of us at the time acknowledged the marriage question, but one night she tells me, "So molecule, you make up your mind yet?" I instantly broke down laughing and 2 weeks later we were married. So for 3 years I regretted it, but it all happened the way it was supposed to and everything worked out in the end. Nice. If there is a feel-good story in this thread, this is it. Every day of my life. But she's happy now and on her rise to actual success, so I'm more than happy for her, even if I'm just watching from afar. About 2 years ago I broke up with my GF because I was going through some family problems and being laid off. I still miss her to this day. I was very young, and I was working for a company. Our account officer at our bank was cute, very cute. We were in friendly tones, but she didn't reciprocate my interests. Fast forward about 10 years or so and we are both invited to the wedding of a mutual friend, and we're seated at the same table. Yes, the bride and the groom were playing matchmakers. Yes, we hit it off, so we started dating and I really liked her, but there were issues. Mainly, I liked the woman that I used to know 10 years before, not the woman 10 years later. She asked to be seated at my table since she was now interested in me. During those 10 years she had her heart broken 100 times over, her words. During those 10 years she had an abortion so she was owed a baby ASAP, her words. She waited to have sex with me because she really liked me and she had made that mistake too many times before, her words. She had to get married ASAP because her clock was ticking. She would have been perfect for me 10 years prior, but not then. She felt that I was perfect at that time, but not 10 years earlier. Too bad. Too bad, my dude. Cut your losses and move on. I think you're just planned C to her. I did at the time, but now I don't. I had an unaddressed, but yes diagnosed, mental illness that was causing us problems. We broke up and I took the time to work on bettering myself and getting my mental health in line. We were broken up for about a year. Now we've been back together for 2.5. I dated a guy for 6 months in my early 20s. He was wonderful and we were very into each other. However, I had serious mental illness issues, and his mum had just died, so he was all kinds of messed up. We mutually decided to end it. We ran into each other again 2 years later and hit it off straight away. That was 8 years ago and he is now my husband. My boyfriend and I broke up after dating for about 4 months. It was a relationship of convenience, and when he needed to move about an hour away, we knew he didn't care to make the effort. About a year later we started talking again. 8 years later we're still together. I feel like I was super lucky we did break up, cause when we got back together later, it just worked. I think we needed that opportunity to grow separately before we were ready to combine forces. Thanks for sharing. I'm still coping with a right person, wrong time breakup from 4-5 months ago, and while I'm trying my damnedest to move on, it's still nice to hear that sometimes people find their way back to one another. I met him a few months before I had to leave to study in another country. He begged me not to and we spent every day together, but it was all set. He was the kindest, most generous, chivalrous, smart guy, and the sex was great. We had a great chemistry and he listened and cared about me so much. He bought me flowers and opened doors, but we were from very different backgrounds. He was rich and came from a family of doctors. I was not and often felt inadequate and was shy and didn't want to meet his friends because of that. I moved. He came to London to see me. I would at times go back and see him and we would hook up and it was great, but not possible. I moved on. So did he. I came back to our country and he called me and I said I was in a relationship and so was he. He said she was not like me and that he longed to find someone like me. I got married to an amazing man. He got engaged to the girl he was dating and then he finished his studies and finally became a doctor. I would think about him from time to time as the one who got away and that maybe when we are very old we would meet someday. I am happily married, just sometimes had that thought because it's like leaving something you haven't had the chance to enjoy to the fullest extent. He passed away 2 weeks ago from cancer at the age of 29. I have cried at night every night since finding out, thinking how sad. He studied all his 20s so didn't get to enjoy and didn't have children to leave behind. I wonder if his time on earth would have been happier if we stayed together. Also, I knew he was ill for some time but thought he would recover from cancer at such a young age so didn't reach out to tell him how I felt. I thought it would be unfair on his relationship. I feel terrible and sad and lost. He was a great guy. If it's any consolation, you did the right thing by not telling him how you felt. It would have been so horrible to do that to someone's relationship right when they are dealing with cancer and imminent death. I wasn't mature enough for her, but looking back on it, she was everything I had ever dreamt of. I don't regret breaking up back then because frankly speaking I was a mess and it'd have never worked out. I wish I had the chance to redo it 5 years later, but that's just how life is, so no real regrets. I met a girl in my second semester of college. We began to date after just a few weeks. Everything was easy with her, and for a moment I saw myself spending the rest of my life with her. When we began to date, I made it clear that I was aiming for a scholarship to study in China for a year. We are Mexicans, but I think she dismissed it as a crazy dream. Well, a year after we met, I got the scholarship and had to leave 6 months later. We tried to make it work long distance, but with every day we drifted apart more and more. Eventually, we decided it was not worth lying to ourselves and broke up. Almost immediately, she began to date a guy who had a massive crush on her, and from what her friends have told me, they are planning on getting married. Meanwhile, I had an amazing time in China and after coming back I have dated different girls, but my perspective on life and what I want to be doesn't include settling down in the near future. Most of our mutual friends have asked me if I regret breaking up with her, because if we hadn't it would be me she would be getting married to, but I don't regret anything. She's happy and I have new ambitions and goals I'm fighting for. I regret it every day. I was always traveling for work and did not put in the attention necessary, and soon her calling me became a hindrance when it was my own self-interests getting in the way. I ended things with her since I thought the constant distance was a problem. Never been so wrong in my life. If you really found the right person, do everything you can to make it work even in difficult circumstances. Otherwise you might find yourself like so many of us in this thread, full of regret. In high school I met this girl and we instantly hit it off. We started dating and were getting serious. But we were in high school so our parents forced us to break up, and even though we were the same age, birthdays less than a month apart, I was a grade ahead of her. So I graduated and lost touch with her. Our breakup was also very messy because I was stubborn, and leave it at that. Fast forward 3 years and we get in touch because we have a college class together. We start talking again and think to try again, and life just gets in the way. Her stepdad was arrested for child P. Her sister was pregnant and needed help so she moved away and we grew apart again. Fast forward another year, she moved back and started dating her best friend from high school, and he doesn't want me and her being friends. We still talked at least once a week because he didn't want her to be tempted to cheat on him. She cheats on him with a co-worker of hers and he came to his senses. We're all friends now, but if we had met after graduating or if we had rekindled after she moved back instead of before she left, she said she would have seen me being the father of her 2 children, and that still eats at me. Holy frick. I broke up with someone. They were the right person at the wrong time. I loved them so much, but they weren't well and neither was I. It broke me to finally end it. I tried to go out on dates and I slowly started to move on. Kind of. Then around a year later, by chance we became friends again. Right person, right timing. Now we are dating again. It's different and we took it slow. It was not picking up from where we left off. It's almost like dating someone new. Almost. I do believe if we hadn't met by chance again that we would have moved on completely. I would even say that when we met, we had moved on a great deal. And I don't regret the first breakup. I didn't when it happened. Yes and no. He wasn't the right person for me at the time truly. I realized I was deeply in love with someone else, but he was amazing and did absolutely nothing wrong, so I was sorry to hurt him. Feels like I heard this before. No, I don't regret it. As a teacher, after I qualified from university my career was pretty much set. I love my job but there's not much progression, which I'm fine with. Settling down with my university boyfriend felt very final. We had a nice lifestyle but it felt like it could be that way for the rest of my life. New Year's Eve I was sat in a pub with my high school friends and my boyfriend. Everybody happy except me. It's hard to describe the exact feeling, but I felt a lump in my throat and an uncomfortable feeling in my stomach when I realized then that this would be my life. By March I was on a plane to South Korea to teach English, completely random choice based on other people's experiences on the internet. My university boyfriend and I broke up. Few months later I met the guy who I married 4 years later. During my time in Korea, I've traveled a lot. Saving money has been easier here than in the UK and met people I never would have met in my life in the UK. Turns out my career isn't that determined. I work freelance and can structure my own classes while earning over twice my UK salary. My husband is similar to my university boyfriend, but he's 5 years older and made decisions on his life that allow me to be open and honest about what I truly want. Our lives fit together rather than being based on each other. Turns out I had more options in life than I thought, and not settling for the sensible, predictable life was the best decision I made. ETA. I've thought about my reply over the last couple of hours and feel like I've sounded too cold regarding the breakup. It was a very hard time and it affected my weight severely, as well as my eating and sleeping patterns. I try not to dwell on what happened because I know I needed to do it. Part of me wishes I'd never met my university boyfriend and spared us both the pain. Makes me feel a little sick thinking back to that period of my life. I broke up with an amazing girl because I was focused on my drumming career. I was obsessed with becoming one of the greats. I eventually lost everything from my obsession and had to quit drumming. I tried reaching out to her a couple years later but she had found a new BF. I was heading to university and didn't want to bring sand to the beach. We were both 22. She understood. She decided she was going to move back home, halfway across the country. She packed her car up and had dinner with my family. No hard feelings. She understood. The next morning she left for her cross-country drive home. After work that day I get a knock at the door. It was the police. My GF had been killed when an elderly driver crossed the center line and they had a head-on collision. She was less than 60 minutes outside of town. I blamed myself for years. If we hadn't broken up she never would have decided to move back home. It was a dark time in my life. Thankfully, I was able to move forward and drop the blame. This happened over 20 years ago. Still hurts. Frick. Thank you for sharing this. I broke up with him because I was leaving the country for school and our religious values didn't match up. After returning from abroad we reconnected. Have now been married for 3 years and are expecting our first child in 5 weeks. I don't regret a thing. My ex said she was breaking up with me because she didn't have time for a boyfriend. About 4 days later she's got a new one. Turns out she was seeing him for a few weeks behind my back while we were still together. Apparently they broke up soon after because she came back, talking about how breaking up was the worst decision she ever made and stuff. I helped her get through the post-breakup depression and possible suicide. Not sure, but I didn't take her back. So yeah, I guess she regretted it. We dated in college, but there were some silly complications that broke us up. We went our separate ways, dated other people and rekindled because I had borrowed a DVD set and never gave it back to her before breaking up. We rekindled our relationship and everything was going great. We bought a house, adopted a dog and cat and had plans for marriage and everything. My mental health got in the way. I drifted away, let the attention of other girls cloud my judgment and our communication broke down. We broke up, but the fire of our relationship was strong anytime we saw each other. She had to move because of work, but we Skyped still. We were close to getting back together, but I was stupid. We kept in contact and started dating other people. I pretended to be happy for her and tried to move on. She got engaged on her birthday and the last thing I said to her was happy birthday. I had to let go. I miss her every day and regret letting my mental health prevent me from seeing what I truly had in front of me. My next relationship turned abusive and messed me up more. She's happily married. No, it would not have worked out for at least 3 more years, and making someone, or myself, wait that long sounded cruel at the time. So I broke it off. Felt bad for a year or so, but 6 years later I still believe I did the right thing. Every day. But I can't help but still believe it was the best. I just wish I could do it all one more time. Wake up next to him one more time. Kiss him one more time. Go to the thrift store together one more time. Get coffee one more time. I honestly got a little teary-eyed. 100%. The thing that makes it worse is seeing her with someone that she can clearly do much better than. The guy simply doesn't deserve her love, not even saying. To top it all off, we've talked and it truly seems like she's settling because she doesn't want to go through the work of finding a new person again. So not only do I feel like crap because I don't have her, but also because she's settling for this alright guy and she's a truly remarkable woman. It's never a bad idea to step back from a relationship if that person's not a good match in that moment. Maybe you'll get back together, maybe not. Just you and the right person at the right time will come along. Not necessarily. Many people die without having found the right one. Broke up with my ex 2 summers ago because we both lived in different cities and I wasn't ready to move there. Occasionally I still look for her on dating sites, but it's starting to sink in that she's probably moved on completely. I broke up with someone I thought was right person, wrong time. Turns out the time was fine, but it was just seriously a case of wrong person. I thought I was going through some unaddressed mental health issues because I never wanted to see him and was so stressed out and depressed. I thought I might have been bipolar because I was always so up and down. He always wanted so much of my time. He wanted constant attention and made me feel like crap when I was busy. I broke up with him thinking I needed to get my crap together. But looking back now I realized how unhealthy the entire relationship was. Turns out you'll be really stressed out by someone using you as their personal therapist and putting so much pressure on you to make them happy. A lot of the stuff he did was pure emotional manipulation and was really freaking crappy. He still isn't in therapy actively dealing with his problems in a healthy way. Since we broke up, every day has been a happy day for me. It was a good choice. Yes, I did. It was a sad, lonely time in my life, and I didn't know what was going to happen to me. I considered it a mistake back then, and maybe it was, but I recognize now that our relationship was not sustainable without massive sacrifices. I'm doing okay. She kind of isn't, and I hope she does better soon. We did. For 7 years I regretted it. We are now back together, planning our wedding. We both just needed that time to grow up. We did. So happy for you. Truly, I am. I broke up with the girl of my dreams because I was moving to a different city and she needed to stay. Regretted it for years, almost 2 decades. Then I met the woman who eventually became my wife. Now, 20 plus years into our marriage, I realize I haven't thought about that first girl for many years now. Only this post made me think of her now. Life goes on and you get to be happy again. Every day, every so often I'll think about moving to where he lives now, to see if that would change anything. He jokes about me doing that too, and how maybe we'd live together if I did, but I don't know. I think more than anything I loved him more than he ever knew, and more than he ever loved me. I've never stopped loving you, Connor. If you both are free and single, move ASAP. I had a crush on my best guy friend in high school. We admitted feelings to each other, went on 2 dates, and I freaked out because we were applying to college soon and our families are friends and I was scared of the fallout, so I ended it. This was 4 years ago. We stayed friends but we drifted apart when we went to different colleges. I saw him recently and the connection we had hasn't faded at all, and I haven't had this connection with another guy since. He's moving in with his girlfriend and I haven't had a serious relationship since him, so I have a bit of regret. I don't know what would have happened, but I wish I calmed down enough to try. Like everything, I was obsessed with finishing school. Granted, she didn't want to wait, I pushed her away. She got married a few years later and is happy. Of all the people I was ever involved with, she was the only one who understood what made me tick and liked it. She was literally a Leslie Knope clone in the ways that she remembered every little detail that mattered. Big whoops. I used to regret breaking with this girl 4 years ago, but I met my current GF and never looked back. I actually realized there isn't right person. It's a myth. I stopped believing in a right person years ago. I used to eat that crap up as a teenager. Now I just laugh at that fairy tale bulls. God has someone for you, my butt. That's such an immature black and white view on romance that's perpetuated by Hollywood. I was on the other end. Dated someone for a while. Then out of the blue she said she didn't love herself and had to take some time to work on her own issues. She explained to me that it was exactly the right person, wrong time thing. I was upset, of course, but I understood because she was genuine about it. I come to see a couple months later that she has a new boyfriend and says that her life has turned around. My guess is that she doesn't regret it. Sometimes, our part in someone else's life is to make them improve themselves. My high school girlfriend didn't deserve any of the crap I pulled when we were 18. I often wonder about her. I'm happily married now and wouldn't change that. I just hope she's happy too. About a decade ago I was broken up with for this reason. We've fallen out of touch, though I'm curious how she feels about this question. Was seeing this girl in high school for about 6 weeks till she left me for some older guy who ended up being a massive prick. 4 years later we started dating again after she split. So other side of the story, but she tells me she regrets it. And I guess from my side I regret not doing as much to keep her around, as I was one of those I just want the best for you back in the day. IDK man, you seem like plan B to me, no offense though. No, it was relief because it was the wrong time for it. We're still friends, so you never know what the future holds. Maybe the right time will come. No, we ended up getting together at the right time, which turned out to be about a year ago now in August. History goes back 10+ years. At first, yes, I was heartbroken and avoided dating for a while, but honestly it was for the best. We loved each other dearly, but we both had things going on in our lives that were putting a strain on the relationship. We decided to end it and get our crap together, and if things worked out we'd give it another shot. I ended up moving away, so we never got another chance at it, but we kept in touch, and now 3 years later he's one of my best friends. And I know we would have grown to hate each other if we would have stayed together. No, because I had a choice between a man who would tell me how he felt about me every day and a guy who wouldn't or couldn't. I chose the first one, without regret 25 years later. But the second one, geez, there was something I can only describe as electric. The air was just filled with this intensity all around us. I often wondered if it was just my imagination, but people would walk by us and get goofy looks on their faces, like they just walked through a force field. The fact that I can't even explain it probably means I couldn't handle it on the long term. Like that with my ex. Like the world didn't exist at all when we were together and he was happy. If he wasn't happy, it wasn't a good time. Yes and no. I broke up with my ex about 11 or 12 years ago. I was young and I was sure that all the ladies in the world was just waiting for me. It turned that no one was waiting for me. We started dating again a few years later, and we ended up moving in together, only to find out it was the right time, wrong person type of thing. We are not together today. I wish her all of luck. Still thinking about her from time to time. When fiance and I separated after a rough patch, we never imagined getting back together. I met 2 women who were perfect partners. Absolutely could I have imagined making that work, and my life would have been possibly wonderful. But I made things work with fiance after some time. The matters of the heart are incredibly complex. Fiance makes it easy. I hope they have wonderful lives, but I am in my life and they are in theirs, and I hope everyone found what they wanted in it. My first GF, to be honest. Everything to this day I felt clicked, but I was too immature back then, as she was a couple years older than me and we lasted about a year before breaking it off, cause my stupid butt. Ever since then I have compared all girls to her on how I just felt in general about them, and I'd just break it off with those after a certain period. I'm now at the point where I've just given up on trying to find anyone else, cause to me everything about her was just a perfect fit, and only if I wasn't such a freaking tosser back then. This back around when I was 14 or so, and now I'm nearing 29. Dude, you were 14. That's half a lifetime ago. Nope, not now. I did at the time, but looking back it really wasn't the right time for either of us. We were too young, and stupidly we built our lives completely around one another and lost our individuality. I was devastated. I got better and even moved on, but there was always a little hurt left over losing her. Life is awful funny though, because here I am almost a decade later and she's napping beside me while I post this, so we found the right time. Hey, I don't regret it. I miss her sometimes, absolutely, but I just want a good time for either of us. But I'm glad we stayed friends rather than let things go bad. We're both in better places now, thankfully. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.